First question, Sean. So, Sean, where are you from, and what is it that you currently do?
I am from Edmonton, Alberta. I'm a senior manager in Deloitte's strategy and operations practice, focused in on innovation. I've been with the firm for about 10 years, and I help organizations figure out their innovation strategy. And internally at Deloitte, looking at how we can destroy our own businesses and our own services and disrupt what we're doing.
Okay, I have a lot of questions for you guys.
Sure.
Helping organizations come up with innovation strategies.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah, we live in exponential times right now. We're being disrupted by mobile, social, cloud, analytics, DIY innovators, crowdsourcing, etc. If you walk into many of these public sector organizations and large organizations, they are unprepared to deal with the existing, I would say, disruptors. And so our job is to help them navigate these waves and to figure out how to survive. I'll give you an example. On Monday, we met with Alberta Transportation, the transportation department of the province, to figure out what the future of transportation is going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. We looked at autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, multimodal transportation, sensor technology, data as a currency, looking at how they can prepare themselves for the future. And what we did was we brainstormed millions of ideas around how they would do this, but then we got very actionable. We picked three ideas that they can action, that they can execute with, and they can go forward with. That's just one example. Another example is just helped Calgary Economic Development figure out how to change from an existing economic development firm that's been around for hundreds of years into a media company. And so we gave them a strategy on how to do that. So it's helping organizations really break through, make an impact, and become 10 times better than they previously were. Now companies don't come to us and say, "Oh, can you give us an innovation strategy?" They need help navigating this world, and we term it as innovation. There's no company in the world that will say, they do like, oh, like, yeah, that we need something innovative, but we need a strategy. I'm in strategy, and what we do in what we've been traditionally doing in strategy is very different from what we do in innovation.
And in what way?
Well, strategy is one of the oldest business fundamentals in the world, right? Go back to war. Strategy has always existed, but the way that people do corporate strategy today and organizational strategy, it is no longer applicable now. I'm a big reader of strategy and the philosophy around strategy. Throughout the years, classical strategy has the idea of classical strategy has always existed, which is be big, be the best, and move on. But nowadays, it's not about being big. It's about being flexible. It's being lean. It's being nimble, and it's being adaptive to the environment that you're in. And so strategy has changed, so that's not strategy. That's almost like innovation.
Yeah. How do you feel that internally, like organizations are changing? So this may be more like on a macro level, let's say, where you're talking about, but what are like micro, like internally within teams, for example, or even between managers? How do you feel that's changing?
Right now, I am scared to death about what's happening within organizations. I'm scared to death with what's happening with public sector organizations. They're completely unprepared. There are people I'll give you context. On Monday, I was talking to the provincial transportation group, and I asked the question, how many people in this room have tried Uber? There's 40 people, like top executives in this room. They are in charge of figuring out how we move from A to B. Only one person tried it, and that was in Paris. They didn't even try it in their own city. So the audacity that people have, they don't even want to see what's happening in their marketplace is remarkable to me. People in public sector totally unprepared. In large organizations, I mean, if you look at the stats, in 1955, 89% of the companies on the Fortune 500, they are no longer on the list today, right? So that's basically everyone. If you look at how long companies have been on the S&P 500, in the 1920s, it was around 67 years. Today, it is 15 years. Like the half-life of organizations has reduced dramatically, and that just means that right now the competition is ruthless. There are no barriers to entry. People need to they need to wake up, and right now I'm scared to run a company. I'm scared to be in the public sector because it's a jungle out there.
What about companies, and like what kind of companies do you look up to? What kind of companies do you think that are doing this right, that they're staying agile, that they're actually
Yeah, yeah.
they're recognizing this change?
Well, I don't want to drop like the typical, Apple,
Yeah, yeah.
Tesla. You know, some companies that are interesting to me are, you look at, for example, TED. TED, uh, I'm sure you watch TED
Company,
Talks.
company organization, yeah.
Yeah, so instead of using like an example like Tesla or SpaceX or whatever, TED is cool because they have a small organization, and to attend a TED, it costs thousands of dollars to attend a TED. But what they have done is brilliant. They've almost hacked their own social and viral effects. Um, so, although it cost me thousands of dollars to attend a TED, they put up their content for free, and they've almost made this brand around their talks, around their speakers, and their ideas spread everywhere. So they've been able to exponentially spread their brand across the globe, um, with a very small team, and I find that remarkable. Same with BuzzFeed. So here's another kind of atypical example. So BuzzFeed, I don't know how much revenue they're doing. They're not making billions of dollars in revenue, but I would consider them innovative and exponential. They've become big by not because people go to BuzzFeed. They first got big not because people went to BuzzFeed directly. They put their stuff everywhere. Like they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook. People are resharing. They made their content so compelling that they were everywhere and people were sharing it. And so people were looking at BuzzFeed, but looking at BuzzFeed not on BuzzFeed's page, but everywhere else on social. And I think that was a brilliant strategy. And again, very small team, and they're doing some amazing things. So they've totally disrupted the content game in a world where content is the hardest thing to do. Like to be a content producer is difficult. You see newspapers falling. I worked for Singapore Press Holdings
Okay.
in 2005. Okay, and my job, this was 10 years ago, and my job was to predict the future of newspapers. That was my job.
What kind of conclusions did you come up with?
And I probably am the reason for the downfall of that organization. 10 years ago, I didn't know much about. I was just a kid. Like I didn't know anything about newspapers or content. And then our innovations were like, how do we get from a big newspaper that you hold like this to a smaller newspaper? It was called tabloid format. That's what we were talking about around the future of newspapers and innovation. We didn't predict mobile. Like we didn't predict the rise of mobile. We didn't predict the rise of Kindle, or holographic images or video. Like it was like, how do we get newspapers from here to here? And that and what that taught me was like I needed to wake up at that point, like, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is everybody." I got a standing ovation. Oh, this is great. 10 years ago, they're like, "This is great. This is so innovative." I mean, it's insane, like that I came up with that. So I hope the organization is doing well because I haven't checked their stock price, but I that was one wake up call for me. I will never do that again. To predict something in today's age is deadly. Like if I predicted something that's what's going to happen in the next 10
Yeah.
years, it would be completely ludicrous because because the world is going like a hockey stick, and it's dangerous to make predictions.
So other than asking a very general question, what do you feel organization or like what do you feel an entrepreneur going to do to predict that, or not predict it but prepare for that?
An entrepreneur.
Yeah, an entrepreneur.
So I think an entrepreneur, what they need to do is they need to be um, they need to be on top of what's happening in their industry and what's happening outside of their industry. There's no longer a an excuse to not know what's happening outside your industry. And the reason is because what we see is a convergence between all these industries happening. We're generating inspiration from companies outside of our industry, and there's such a convergence happening that entrepreneurs need to be on the pulse of what's happening around them. But I also feel that entrepreneurs need a level of naivety. Like they need to be naive a little bit because if they know too much about everything, they're gonna have this like self-fulfilling, oh, I can't do that, it's too hard, it's too risky, there's too many barriers. And so you almost need to be a bit bullish and not know about everything in your particular industry in order to get into it. I think there's still that level of or you need to, it's either that or you need to find a secret that no one else knows that that you can help disrupt that industry.
So kind of be a beginner because a beginner can see a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
think I think students are in the best position to build companies, right? They don't have a mortgage. They're not married yet. Like, well, hopefully they're not married yet. You should probably get married when you're older. They probably, don't have kids yet. And I'm totally generalizing, but the barriers to entry are zero now. Like
Yeah.
when I was going through university, like I am jealous, and I am that I did not grow up in this era because the opportunities are tremendous, and and a student can go in, fail fast, test industries, test ideas, and there are no barriers, and starting small. So it's just an amazing time to to be alive. It's an amazing time to be an entrepreneur.
So, like, kind of asking this specific question, then, if you mentioned like the possibilities are endless right now, so low barriers to entry. You get in a time machine and you're going back to when you're in university. What are the specific things that you would be doing in today's
Uh, I would be if I had a time machine and went back to university, and in today's the age,
world?
what would I do? I would stop watching Netflix. I would cut my Netflix off. I've actually done that. My wife and I, we cut Netflix. We don't have it, and I would get with a whole bunch of people who are entrepreneurial, who are ambitious, who are driven, and I would surround myself with these people. I would say, hey, listen, we live in an incredible time right now. Why don't we get together? Let's just shoot the shit. Let's
Yeah.
let's figure out some ideas, and not just ideas. Let's execute against some of these. Let's dive into building apps, building websites. Let's dive into things and just test them out really quickly. You will also learn an incredible amount about marketing, about building, about designing when you just do shit. Um, and so if I was in university, and I know university, like you have a million courses, you have to study a ton, you got the social aspect, you got to go to the parties. Um, um, I would I would get out, figure out what you're passionate about, and just start building stuff and just trying and throwing things out there. I think that's the best. Um, it's the best. It's the best way to start anything. Also, if I was about 10 years ago, I don't know if I would go to university. I actually I would. When my kids grow up, I'm not sure if they're going to go to university. I don't know if I'm going to push it. As bold as that sounds, and as an Indian, we want our kids. You know, we're brown. It's in our blood. Education. We want our kids to go to school. We want them to be doctors and engineers, and some sort of professionals. But I actually don't know if school is going to be best. What do you learn in school? Like you don't you learn it you get great connections, but you learn in the real world. And now with no barriers to entry, you can learn on the fly. And you see some companies. I just met this kid. He's in high school. He's making $30,000 a month in online marketing, and he came to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm thinking of going to UBC." I'm like, "Why are you going to UBC? You're making more money than the average, like 1% of the entire population. What do you need? Like, keep hustling, keep building, keep your online business going, and now you have the capital to try out other ideas. Keep on doing that." So I mean that's another conversation,
Yeah,
but
no, it's definitely an interesting one, especially for students. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean
Where are you spending your time? What are you focusing on?
right now,
No, well, like for students to kind of go through that process, right? Like
yeah,
bring the resources, making those decisions where it's definitely not as linear as it was before, where just high school, undergrad, maybe masters.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Companies will if you want to work for a company, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, we glamorize and we romanticize what entrepreneurship is. It is fucking hard, and it's not what it's cut out to be. My wife is building uh, a retail a coffee business, sort of like a David's Tea for coffee, where they sell beans, and not competing against Starbucks, but more around the David's Tea model. She's nervous, she's anxious, she's stressed, she's excited, she's worried. Like, she's every emotion, right? So it is it is so hard. But and to go into a company, people are like, "Oh, well, you're gonna go in a company, like you're not gonna do anything cool, like you're not gonna be able to make millions of dollars." The the reason why I'm at Deloitte is that I can act as an entrepreneur within Deloitte, and I have the funds to do it. I can still make an impact. I can. I'm not gonna get. I'm not gonna be disproportionately paid more than an entrepreneur, but on the average, I'm probably going to get paid more. I mean, if you look at the average of entrepreneurs, we glamorize like Elon Musk. We glamorize
Fiber bias.
the founders, right? Like, they're making shitloads of money, but the 99% of the other entrepreneurs, they're making not more money than anybody working in companies. That's for sure, and they probably a lot more stress. So I'm fine with people taking those moonshots. I think we need those people, but it's not what it's all cut out to be. You can still go in a company, still do cool shit, and still change the world, even working for a company.
I think definitely that it's the mentality, like you're saying, right? Even working in a company, you can have that mindset. You can have that mentality where the way you approach problems, the way you see obstacles, you can come at it from so many different angles.
Yeah,
You can. I remember when our last chat, you talked a lot about when you're trying to meet a person, for example, or you're looking when you want someone to join on the same with Deloitte, you're not looking for someone that can just go and do a PowerPoint presentation.
no, no,
You're saying you want that person that can code, that can put up landing pages, that can do some digital marketing, that's well rounded, because that's where the world's at today.
yeah. So I think even going forward, we need people with skills. Like, I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what courses you took. I don't care. I want to see that you're a leader in school. I want to see that you're leading things outside of inside school. I want to see that you have skills, like technical skills, like you can do shit. Like you can build landing pages. You've failed at doing companies. You've like I want to see that you've done stuff. And I don't care if you've done a PowerPoint presentation. I don't care if you have Excel skills. Those are it's like table stakes. Like you need that.
Yeah.
You need to be able to present. You need to be articulate. You need to be like good at writing. Like you need to be everything, and you need to have experience and like the skills to back it up. So, and I think more and more companies are going to be valuing that. It depends who's in the hiring position too,
Yeah.
because of course that's what we want at Deloitte. But if you go to a very traditional, like I don't know, oil and gas company, or maybe even a public sector, they still have the old school people doing looking for the same things. But then is that an organization that you want to be with?
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? What's your game plan?
What do I want to do? Good question. I guess still got another year and a half for graduation, but I'm definitely going down the startup route. If either that's joining a startup or doing a project of my own.
Great.
Definitely, I definitely see the value in what I see a lot. For example, going into a company, it's the opportunity for learning.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to entrepreneurs. A lot of people want to start their company right out of school, but you should be getting a job in the industry that you want to maybe potentially do your business and essentially get paid to learn. I thought those
Right.
are really interesting perspective.
Awesome.
Because basically when you're doing your own business, the way that after that talk kind of resonated that, yeah, I may be doing this and I may be failing, maybe putting so much into it. But if I go into a company and work with a team, I'll be able to get to do stuff, learn and get paid while doing it, use those funds after to bootstrap.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, for example, are, okay, well, I'll raise X, or I'll pitch to this and do this, or I'll do this business competition, or apply to this grant and this grant. That's great, but it doesn't always work out that way, I think.
Yeah. You know what? I guess there's no real best way to start. If you start with a company, if you don't start, I think the other thing is, so that's great. I think good for you, and it's good that you have, because most students that I talk to, they're like, I have no fucking idea what I want to do. That's 90% of the people. They're like, I don't know, and that's okay. No one knows what they want to do in life when they just go to university and they're like, I just want a good job. Well, I hope we change that mentality of what we want to do, good job, and we flip that saying, okay, what do I like doing?
Yeah.
Or what do I enjoy? And then they can start going down that path of figuring out what they want to do. So stop thinking about what job do I want. It's like, what do I like doing?
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of students definitely don't approach it that way though. They're starting to get into it, but it just speaking from a business student perspective, definitely students need to get changed. They need to kind of open their eyes more a bit.
Yeah.
Definitely happening a lot more now, and I'm starting to see a transition even from last year compared to now. How people will be always different, willing to try more stuff, but it's still you'll still always have, for example, a very traditional message. I think that's fine for people that want to do that. Very trivial, like accounting positions or the finance positions, and those people that are interested in doing that, and that's great for them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are starting to realize that there's a lot more opportunities and possibilities doing so much other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still 80-20. Like when I speak at a lot of universities,
Yeah.
and 80% of them they still want the finance, accounting, marketing, like the traditional jobs, and the other 20% have an inkling of, okay, there's other things out there that I might want to do, and those are the ones that are ambitious. Those are the ones that are getting involved. They're experimenting. The other 80% are checked out. Like they're not gonna they don't want to do that stuff. They don't care. This is fine. That's the world.
Yeah.
If you survey the world, it's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
So
No, it's really no, but those personally, I think as a student perspective, I really like hanging around that 20%
yeah,
because they're the ones that always try to think differently.
Exactly.
Everything else has been doing this. If everything else is being done this way, there has to be a different way to do it.
Exactly. Well, if you look at I'm sure you see the same thing. Like every single person that's involved, they're all connected. They're all doing stuff, and they're always involved in the same events. And the other 80%, they don't give a shit. They're doing their own thing. They're not involved. Um, but but you need to surround yourself with people who are ambitious and who are doing things. And I don't subscribe to this like the five friends that you're the average of the five friends. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done that math yet, but um, I think I think that's important is to be surrounded by people. I mean, for me, the way that I surround myself is I actually listen to like audiobooks, podcasts. I read books. Um,
What
I'm
books are you reading now?
um, I am reading. Um, they're all just it. I'm just so the best book that I've read this year. If you want
Yeah,
so Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 is the greatest. It's one of the greatest. Have you read it?
yeah, I read it. I love it. Yeah,
It's it's amazing. There's an underrated book called Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail, which is amazing. Um, the traction, if you're building a company,
isn't
and
that by Justin Mares?
yes,
Yeah, yeah, it's
you've
really
read it as well. Amazing. Um, if you want a really good like growth hacking book by Ryan Holiday, Growth Hacker Marketing,
Oh, I've heard of that. I haven't read it.
is also amazing. Um, I listen to a lot of podcasts too. Like if you're into social media and like Gary Vaynerchuk, the Ask Gary V show is great. The
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss show, um, Startups for the Rest of Us, Mixer G. So I've been listening to Mixer G with Andrew Warner for about two years, and I've learned so much about how to run companies, and then I apply them to a old school organization like Deloitte, and it's just um, it's amazing like how you get leads, how you do content marketing, how you do lead generation. Uh, it's phenomenal.
So, what are your thoughts on that then? Like, what are your thoughts on like someone basically just sharing their fountain of knowledge?
Yeah. So we're starting something called Deloitte Play, and what we're doing is we're unlocking 170 years of business secrets, and we're one of the world's most prestigious companies. We are going to be unlocking the doors to what we know, our frameworks, our strategies, and we're going to be teaching it online. You can take things from design thinking to corporate tax to supply chain management, and these courses are going to be taught by an expert. The course is going to be available to everyone. You can learn at your own pace. Like we need to get into the on-demand space. We've been so over the last 170 years. We've been so adamant about keeping everything in house, like keeping all our IP together. But now, honestly, knowledge is commoditized. Information is commoditized. You can get information anywhere. Go on Google, look up strategy framework. You'll find a billion of them, and and they're not good. And so why don't, instead of people navigating the internet with all this crappy material, let's put up what we've learned from 170 years, millions of companies, and allow people to leverage these platforms to learn. I think it's a great business. I think it's a great business model. It's something that's pretty disruptive for Deloitte, but we're going to be launching it soon and going forward. We're going to start small, MVP. We're going to put up some courses and see what the uptake is, and if it falls flat on its face, then that's all good. We'll pivot, but I think it's yeah, we just need to do it. Like if you look at other organizations like Tesla, they're like open source. Like they don't have any patents. They've made it completely available. If you look at other, whether it's you know companies opening up their APIs and opening up to other third-party developers. This idea of opening up your IP and getting others to work with it. I mean, it's just the way of the future. We need to start doing that.
So what do you like? So there's okay. This is like kind of random, like off topic but related. So a lot of people, like entrepreneurs, for example, they say when you have an idea, share it. Never hold back. Like there's that philosophy, right? Like consistently talk about it. Consistently talk about it. For example, in coding, I was talking to my buddy, and he's, for example, like GitHub. When people like a repository for code, a lot of
Perfect. Yeah.
open, right? Because you want to be able to showcase, you want to be able to share your code because it's about that community. What are your thoughts on then? So, for example, like someone accessing Deloitte Play, you were calling it?
Yeah.
Okay, Deloitte Play. And coming at like, wow, that's great. But for example, have you guys ever thought of this way, perhaps?
Yeah.
Like some person in some remote corner of the world, like approaching that. Is that something like? What do you guys think about that?
So I think there's a couple points around that. Number one is that you should. This is um, in my opinion, but you shouldn't be scared about sharing your idea with people. There is no way. There is no way that somebody is going to have the capital, the time, the willingness, the passion to execute on your idea. Ideas are shit. Like it's all about execution. It's all about hustle. It's all about making that idea happen. Um, so there's no. Don't be afraid to share your idea. You're not coming up with something so. Tell me an idea that somebody has not thought about, or that has not been done. Like you can come up with a million. It's about execution and making it happen. So I don't think people should be scared about sharing their idea. And then the other thing is once you share idea, of course you're gonna get all this like noise, right? You're gonna be like, somebody's gonna say, somebody in the remote part of Africa is gonna be like, well, you should do like this, or you should do like this, you should do like that. You should take all that in but just go for it. Like, just because somebody's telling you something, they have no idea. I told this newspaper 10 years ago that they should be reducing their newspapers. Like, people have no idea. There are no rules. You just got to go and try it and try people's different ideas. Try this guy's idea in Africa if you think it's good. Try this guy. Maybe somebody else has a shit idea. You know what Andreessen Horowitz does? They invest in ideas that sound like bad ideas. They look for the good ideas that look like bad ideas.
What do you
And
mean?
so um, the reason why large organizations fail is because we get in a room and then we have all these ambitious, driven, amazing people, and then we kill the bad ideas. Nobody wants to look like an idiot, right? They don't want to look like they don't care about the business or whatnot. So we get around the room and then we kill the bad ideas, and then the ideas that are left are the good ideas. But they're all mediocre, right? They're gonna help our business incrementally. The best ideas are the ones where people are like, that's a shitty idea. I'll give you an example. The founder of the founder of Airbnb went to Andreessen Horowitz. They said their idea was, we're going to buy an air mattress, we're going to put it in our San Francisco apartment, and then we are going to rent it out. That sounds like a fucking terrible idea, and it's a great idea for serial killers, but a bad idea in general, right? Bad ideas like Gutenberg. He invented the printing press when 96% of the world was illiterate, right? Bad idea. So I think if you have an idea, please make sure that I hope to God, like most people will say, that's a terrible idea. Because maybe that might be a good idea that looks like a bad idea. It might be a shit idea as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make a phone, I'm going to call it the iPhone, and then I'm going to sell it, and it's going to look exactly like the iPhone. That's a bad idea, right? You might have a good idea, but I hope that people are like, that's a bad idea. I hope, because then you have a really mediocre idea that's not going to do anything, right? So I think that's important.
Okay. Couple more questions I wanted to ask you before that.
Sure.
You mentioned you run a podcast.
Yes.
Tell me more about it.
Okay, so the podcast is called The Dip. And the reason why it's called The Dip is because um, Seth Godin, the famous marketer, he had a book called The Dip, and it represents when a company is kind of on that downswing, and how they get to um, how do they get out of that slump? How do they get out of that dip? Um, and the whole reason for calling it The Dip, I didn't even know that, but I basically wanted to build a podcast around disruption, because I was working with all these industries and all these organizations that are on the brink of disruption. Even our business is on the brink of disruption. So I wanted to see and investigate industries that were facing this. Like, to me, it's I drive down the road and I see like these shitty electronic stores. I'm like, how does that business exist? Like, like, I want to know, like, I want to interview them and say, like, how are you existing in the day of eBay and Amazon and you see big box stores like Future Shop go out of business. How are you existing? Or you walk in a mall and you see these companies, and I just want to understand why they exist. I mean, the first one that we did was around radio, and I'm like, I don't listen to radio anymore because I listen to audiobooks and podcasts and Apple Music and Spotify and Songza. And I'm like, how are people making money off the radio? So I actually was interested. So what we did was we interviewed somebody from we interviewed the chief operating officer of a radio station, and we interviewed her. And then my friend and my co-host and we chatted about it, and we talked about the disruption of radio. So that was it's our interest around how these industries navigate these exponential times.
What drew you to do that? What did you want to? Do you want to take an in-depth look at these industries that you wanted to get involved specifically with these experts?
No, I just want to know, like, from my own curiosity, how some of these companies are still existing. Like, we're not running this podcast for the money or the fame or the scalability. Like, we're just like really just interested in learning about how these companies will exist and how our world will be shaped. So it's just a pure passion of ours, of mine and my co-host. We just want to explore these industries and see where it goes. So I hope you'll listen. Hopefully you can get that through the podcast. Um, yeah, we're just really interested in it.
It's dope. That's awesome, actually.
Yeah, so it's on iTunes, called The Dip.
I'll take a look into it. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty interested then for like this is a question that we asked the first. So by the way, you're a second.
Okay, good.
The first person we asked, like what kind of steps did you feel that to where you're at right now? If you kind of look back, if you kind of like if you draw out a timeline, let's say for the past 10 to 15 years or your whole life, how would you define like the steps or the stages that you felt like helped you get here? Like what did you feel that you were doing right? What were the things that, well, yeah, I was given this opportunity because I don't know, I got involved in this group, or I was, I don't know, I was involved in this space, or I was reading this, or I was doing this. What do you feel like were kind of the components or attributes of getting to where you're at now?
So I think everyone is going to have their own personal story of how they got to where they are. And I think there is no one that can replicate your steps and make that happen. Like, I can give you 5 points. You could follow those 5 points and you might end up in like Vietnam, like teaching. I don't know. Like, who knows what happens? I mean, for me, it was really, uh, I was I was like really naive growing up. Like, I wasn't as ambitious as I am today. I think it happens with a lot of people. If you look at a ton of entrepreneurs or successful people, actually what made them successful or what made them so great was some sort of challenge or struggle or um, something tragic happen, and it's you see this all the time. And for me, it was my father passed away at around he passed away about 8-9 years ago, and for me that was the most challenging time because my mom didn't know how to do anything. I had to start taking care of the family. He died on April 19th, and then or April 21st, and then he was a tax accountant. He had over 200 clients, and on April 30th, April 30th was the tax deadline, so he had to do all these taxes. So the day that he died, the next day, I went into his business, and I didn't know anything about doing taxes. Like I didn't know shit all about it, but I started to learn, and I started to file. Literally, I didn't sleep for 11 days. I was a machine. I just powered through all these tax returns. I got someone else to help me, and we had to file these tax returns for people because like my dad was he had help, but there was no one who had signing authority. And of course, I had signing authority because I took over the company, and then I ran that company for about 8 months, and then I subsequently sold it. I ran it with clients, and I learned so much about business, and I learned so much about entrepreneurship, and in that very short time span. And I learned how to exit a company as well, and go through the whole fundraising process or the exit process. And so I learned so much in a tight span that really shook me up. He's like, shit, like, life is short. Like you got to take advantage of it, and you got to, like, at that point, I never stopped. Like I enjoyed every second of my life, worked really hard, because you never know when the next day is going to be your last. I just recently read a book where they asked the people who were near death, like, what were some of your regrets? And some of the regrets are actually don't work too hard, and it's also enjoy your life. But for me, like I just wanted to do stuff because you never know. And so that was a point in my life that was tragic, but you'll see that with lots of other people. They seem to thrive through struggle and through tragedy. Yeah. It's not that you have to have like a tragedy to like be successful. But you see that a lot.
Yeah.
Like even with I find it remarkable that some of these rappers, like, I don't know if you watch Straight Outta Compton, but you see like these guys out of the hood, or you see Dr. Dre, um, they're so successful. Jay-Z, they're so successful. They don't know anything about business. They learn how to, hustle in the streets, and but they've struggled, right? And they saw where they were, and they're so successful because they applied what they learned on the streets to what they do now, but also because they had nothing else. Like they had to survive.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
No, no, that's pretty interesting take. I just from my perspective, yeah, like I think people will always kind of surprise themselves when they're put in scenarios,
Yeah.
and the things they'll do when they're put under a specific, I don't know if it's like pressure or stress, but you're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you see stuff like that, I don't know, it's really just kind of makes you kind of take, like, I don't know, especially me, it makes me kind of step back for a second, like, wow, like the opportunities you have to make the most out of it. There's
Yeah.
there's no excuse, there's no reason why you can't, because other people have, and other people are.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's really cool.
There are, and a lot of people. And of course, we're doing this because people want to learn like what I'm thinking, and maybe they want to get some advice out of this. Like I want to reiterate this. Like, there's no advice that you can take that is going to be great. Like, there is no advice that anybody will ever come up with that's like, you have to do this. Like, I don't want to be like that preacher to say, it's not about hearing about preachers. And you could listen to Peter Thiel, you can listen to Seth Godin, and Tim Ferriss, and all these people who would provide advice, leadership books, and all that kind of stuff. I've read thousands and thousands of advice honestly, they're all contradict each other. And to be honest, the only thing that really matters is just doing something. Like Nike has the best tagline, like, just do it. Like that is it. There's no advice that you need. Just go out, do something, and do something cool that you love. That's it. Um, I think there's no other advice that anybody can ever give other than that, because they all contradict. People are like, should you focus or should you do a million things? Should you? That's a classic example. Or should you follow the money, or should you do something that you're passionate about? Like, there's no rules. Like, people have been successful in either way. So it's just, but the common thread is that they did something.
They did something. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's the CPO at Shopify has kind of like that saying. It's like fail fast, fail forward, just keep moving, keep doing.
Yeah.
I think students, especially embracing that mentality. I think like the earlier that you can start embracing that mentality, your lessons, the stuff you start learning, just becomes so much quicker.
Exactly.
Every week it's actually a lot more meaningful, I think, too. This is just in my opinion, and I think every week becomes a lot more meaningful because every week there's a different lesson, there's a different action, there's a different activity that you did that either change your perspective or something. I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely. You become, and that's why consulting is, not to get it so because it's consulting, but that's why when you get into consulting, you will be 10 times better than the next business person, other than entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is like, consulting is a jungle, but entrepreneurship is like modern warfare. You will learn way more in entrepreneurship than you will in anything else. In consulting, you will, though, and because you get you jump into different industries, different problems, you get outside of your comfort zone, you are punched in the face every single day, and you just become so much better. Your business skills and your acumen just becomes 10 times better. But if you're in entrepreneurship, like, you will become just a way better human, a better person, a better business person. Like, yeah.
Entrepreneurs are cool people.
Yes, they are. They're good at what they do.
Yeah. All right, Shawn. No, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, I know. It was great chatting with you.
No, really, like the way we're gonna do this is like repurpose it for like written content, a lot of it, and what we can do. I think the actual video quality and audio quality is actually pretty good.
Okay.
So we'll see what we can do for like snippets, but for the probably next week, since we're going to South Africa.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be amazing. So
no, it's gonna be excited. Excited. Get back the Monday the 19th.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I'll let you know that week we'll probably get into it, and then for like probably the end of that week we'll have it ready to be released.
All good.
No, I really appreciate it. I think I'm pretty excited for this 22. I think even for my getting like conversation, just fluidity going, I definitely understand it's like this is a process too. Like I want to trying to like for the way I frame my questions and stuff.
No, you're good. You're a great interviewer because you listen. So I think that's the mark of a great interview. You might have like a talk show at some point in your life. I feel it.
We'll see. I think I have a bit more to improve on. I think there's because I know I want to get students like I want students to look at this and kind of be like understand this is very for a student audience and kind of look at these guys and like this is from my perspective. This is just very from my perspective. A lot of students like let's say looking at you, they see a giant. Okay.
Right.
They see a giant. From my perspective, my experience, the closer I get to that giant, the more I start to realize they're a giant, but they're actually not that big.
Exactly.
Like they're like I see how they became this big. Like I'm seeing them up front. I'm like looking at their eyes. I think most students don't have that, and they'll be looking at these people and like, oh, because that's that person. They were able to do it. I can't do that. No, like that's them because they were able to do that because they're amazing.
Yeah.
I think like when you start like, fuck, like that's what I love on because so they're super down to earth, and they're willing to be like, no, this is what I did. Like, no, you can just do this and this and this.
Yeah.
It's not like rocket science. I failed. This is my fourth business, man. Like this isn't like I just didn't do this first time. This is my fourth business. My first 3 ones failed.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. That's the thing that's really kept me going for legacy. That's what I really love doing about it. And I want students more to see like that. Like these guys are awesome. Like the people who are bringing speakers are like they're fucking awesome. But get to know them and get to see them. Like it's not like they're not. It's not like they're aliens or they're superhumans.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great. I think we need to remind ourselves of that. I mean, I have to remind myself of that. So I think that's great advice. We often look at. I do the same thing. I almost look at these guys that I idolize. I'm like, oh man, they're like they're doing, and they're doing such amazing things. But if you humanize them, it's like, hey guys, they're just like me. And they just tried stuff. I think that's really important, and I think people have to remember that too.
I think a huge component is the mentality too. The
Yeah,
mentality.
yeah. No, that's great. That's great advice.
A lot of external, but like the mentality people, like the way they process, the way the bigger vision, and how they just don't get caught up in a lot of small stuff. Once you start like
Yeah,
listening, you start sharing that perspective, like, oh, wow, I never thought of like thinking that bigger from that perspective. For me, I feel like it's helped a lot, and that's what I'm trying to do with these like for students, others to see like stuff like that, right?
yeah. You're right. I mean, I think a lot of people romanticize like the people like on stage, or they romanticize people they read in books, and those people are still. They're also taking a shit. They're also vulnerable. They're also like they don't know what they're doing with their lives. Like we're all like that. Look, we have no idea what we're doing. So
Yeah.
um, I think that's an important point.
Well, I got to run. I got a meeting with my team before we leave.
Absolutely.
But
No,
no,
this is fun.
honestly, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, no, amazing, and have a great time in South Africa, and hope things go
Well,
well there.
so I'll
Uh,
keep you updated on this for the content production, but really, super appreciate you taking the time for this.
awesome.
I'm pretty excited.
Okay. All
All right.
right. We'll see you later. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Bye.